You're listening to WPRS
on the Ztalk Radio Network.
The next stop is the Warren Exchange Paranormal Radio Show on the Ztalk Radio Network.
The views expressed and opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ztalk Radio, its affiliates, or sponsors.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
The Warren Exchange with your hosts Al Warren and Julie Hughes.
Thanks for stopping at the Warren Exchange tonight. Just me, no Julie. So our guest tonight is Kevin Thompson. He's one of the hosts of the Buzz radio show on the Ztalk Radio Network. He also has a ghost hunting team, ghost tours, and he's a medium himself. So we have lots of area to cover right after these words.
Hey everyone, my name is Tyler Oakley. I know y'all got crazy busy days. Honestly, the only way I can ever get through a crazy day is with some coffee. Thankfully, Starbucks has these brand new mini frappuccinos. Can we talk about how cute these are? That are the perfect size. Whether you are just starting your crazy day or you're halfway through and you need that pick-me-up, they are ideal. Actually, adorable. I know, we have all been there where you're trying to decide between two flavors, and honestly, how can you pick between perfection and perfection? Well, now you can get two without feeling guilty. I know, you're welcome in advance.
Hey, this is Reba McEntire, and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about a serious problem right here in our own backyard. Did you know that there are nearly 16 million kids struggling with hunger in America? That's 1 out of every 5 precious children in this country who might not get to eat dinner tonight. But hope is just around the bend, because there's enough healthy, nutritious food produced in this country to put a smile on the face of every last hungry kid. And that's when the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks steps into the picture. They collect surplus food, engaging their communities in solving hunger and giving hope to the hungry kids and their families. But they need your help. So join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank. Find out how you can help at feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Bank, baby. Joining us tonight, we have the incredible Buzz host called Kevin Thompson. And he's a medium, and he also does ghost investigations. So I have to welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you.
Not because I want to.
You flatter me anyways.
I do.
Incredible buzz host.
Incredible. Actually, you are. I don't throw that term around loosely. I do a lot loosely, but I don't throw that around. I listen to a lot of shows. I have for years and years and years. And I pick out at you as having the talent to go much further than most I hear.
Oh, wow. Well, that means a lot coming from you, Al, because I would have said the same thing about you. I've learned a lot from you. You've been patient, and you've been there when I've called you in a crisis. Oh, my God, Al, this has gone wrong. What do I do? You've walked me through it.
Yeah. No. Actually, yeah. Those things, they just fix themselves. But you, no, actually, you have you're a very good, because there's people out there that announce, really good broadcasters, and then there's people that have kind of the expression in their voice, and you stick out that way that a lot of people don't have, that I listen to, and I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, people can recognize natural talent when they see it, because God has given us a discerning spirit. And you have to appeal to your audience. You have to find a way to bring them into you. And, I guess it's more of a trained quality. I'm not so arrogant as to say it's natural talent, but I've just kind of listened to other people throughout the years. And I said, I like that. I'm going to try to do that. I like this. I'm going to try to do this. So I really owe the credit to a multitude of people.
I started listening to radio, and you'll know this from, I had a clock radio in my room as a child.
Yes.
And I say, because you're old enough, I
do.
A lot of people will look at me like, because nowadays they think, you have now it's all, iPods and that sort of stuff. But I had a clock radio, and I listened to them because I used to, as a child, even as 5 and 6, I was hearing spirit then. I was communicating then, and it was quite disturbing for me. And in order for me to turn it off, or not even turn it off, but to take my attention away from what I would hear, plus not understanding, but I would turn on the talk radios shows. So I start listening very young. Now, you being in the same sort of boat as having a mediumship and hearing things, did it start for you when you were young like that? Yes,
I have to agree with that. But back then, I didn't see it as anything different from, I grew up outside of Phoenix in a very, very small community. So, I guess, like we were talking off air, I grew up in a naive culture, and I didn't run into a lot of people right away up front that had this, the same talents. But I was so secluded that I didn't realize I was any different than anybody else. Does that make sense?
Right. I understand that, but
yeah, in the early years, I didn't have anybody to tell me, oh, that's weird, or that's wrong, or that's different. Stop doing that.
Well, but how was it with your parents? Were you able to talk to them about it?
Yes. More my mother than my father. Because as I grew up and began to, I guess, for lack of better terms, suffer persecution for my abilities, my mom eventually sat me down and said, listen, Kevin, this is what is going on. She had abilities. Her mother, before her, had abilities. But we were a pretty open family about the spiritual. It was more of a hereditary thing, a bloodline issue.
I know that you are a religious person. So now, did you grow up in a religious family?
Yes, but we were still open to things of the spirit, or gifts, abilities. We were always a curious family. And we were all pretty, within the boundaries of the family, we were all very open about it.
Pretty close to the same age.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've got a few years there on you, but I think that for me, when I was young and doing this, it was looked upon as kind of, I don't want to say devil worship, but more on on that side, like it was a bad thing. It wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, well, I do understand. I mean, after a while, it just got so overwhelming that I tried to find distractions myself. Science, trying to build things. I worked a lot, worked around animals, worked out in cotton fields. And I guess that's kind of how I discovered radio as well. I grew up in the late 70s and 80s, and music was a big thing. So I began to. Now here, I'm going to date myself here, Al. Do you remember the Walkman?
Oh, yeah, I still have one.
Oh, my goodness. I remember the Walkman was the best discovery ever. But my God, it was about the size of a laptop, remember? You had to have the little leather strap to hold it.
And it was heavy.
Weighed about 10 pounds,
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I started getting, tried to get deep into music, anything to start just, I don't know, take the edge off, to stop it, just give me a moment to myself. And that's when I started talking to other people about it. And they're like, oh my God, this is the weird kid. Don't play with Kevin anymore.
Yeah. yeah, that's.
There's nothing dark or evil about me at all, And so that's when my mom's like, whoa, Kevin, let's sit down. You can't be telling everybody about this. They're not going to understand it. Maybe we've spoiled you by kind of being open about it in the family. But don't, here's, and it began a process of learning. Where did this come from? What is it for? It was pretty touch and go there for a while.
Yeah, it becomes hard. And then so in school you kind of had to avoid it, right? It's not something you can just tell the other kids, really.
Yeah. I was always the weird kid without being weird, without talking about the weird stuff, So
just throw it over the edge.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I wore the suspenders and bow ties like some other people I know, but
that's all right. It kept people a distance.
But we did find our day, did we not?
Well, sometimes.
But yeah, I pretty much just kept it to myself, unless it would benefit me in some way. Sometimes I had an unfair advantage, I guess, looking back on it.
Yeah. And so, well, I mean, you have to realize too, but I look back and I realize that shows like Dark Shadows were popular, and Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of give it a different spin. And then came along the real negative stuff, because I mean, you've got like, all those horror movies that came out, The Exorcist and
yeah, that didn't do us any good.
No. It's not helping your friendship battle there.
Or Scanners.
Yeah.
Scanners. Man, I suffered so much under that movie.
Now, you ended up going to college afterwards.
Well, after high school, I went straight into the military.
Oh, no. So how was that in the military?
Well, it really kind of worked against me in a way. When I was first recruited, I was recruited to go into the military intelligence field. And I was probably about a couple of weeks from joining the Navy when the Army came to me with a better offer. Same fields, but we want you more. We're going to pay you this bonus to enlist in the Army. So, I did. Went to Fort Devens. Well, after basic training, I was a security holdover because I guess they were doing some work with my clearance. As it turns out, they were getting us set up, us selectees for a better word, we were getting set up for this program. We went to Fort Devens, and that's when they began to basically start to sort us out, to weed us out. They began to teach us how to listen and decode Morse code. And, as benign as it may seem on the surface, what it turned out to be is they were seeing how our minds would react to repetitive sound. When you think of Morse code, you think of the old guy sitting in the railroad station, beep, 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 for a few minutes. But can you imagine hearing that for over 8 hours? And they were trying to create an altered state of consciousness, which they did in some of us. So they narrowed it down to probably about 20 of us. And as everybody else in the morning was going off to their classes and going off to their training, we would be taken off to the side, and then we would be sent to another location where they began to teach us and program us for remote viewing. And, I don't know if you want me to go all into that story.
Well, that's interesting. I had Lyle Buchanan on. And
yes, I remember.
And he did that, and he did that for the military, because not only do I believe in a lot of that, but it's really interesting that the military was actually putting effort into that.
They were, and it makes sense. Why would you not? Because the Soviets at the same time was working on a very similar program, and from what we understood, they were getting excellent results. I was only really, honestly, a part of that program for about a year. After our training was over, and it was intensive training. It was exhausting. And as it turns out, I was not as good of a remote viewer as I was a medium. So, they took me and said, all right, listen, Kevin, you're good, but you're not what we're looking for. So what we're going to do, we're going to keep you in the program, but we're going to put you out into the field. Your job is actually going, since you seem to be able to, back then they called it empathize, or you're able to connect with people's energies and understand their thoughts, their feelings, and their emotions. We're going to send you out into the field. And you're actually, for lack of better words, Al, I was used as a human lie detector. So how it worked, the viewers would do their jobs. They'd say, listen, we're looking for this guy. We're looking for Al Warren. Okay, the viewers would start looking for you. They would locate you. Then they would send the teams out to find you based on their information, or the description of your location that the viewers would give. Then the teams would go in, get you, bring you back, and begin to pump you for whatever information they wanted. And our job at that time was simply to say, yes, he's lying, no, he's telling the truth, or ask him about this, or he's thinking about this, or you need to ask him about this. And that was pretty much what we turned into. We went on a couple of overseas missions, and one was extremely successful. And when we got back, the mission was a success, but the surrounding circumstances ended disastrously. So when we got back, those of us that were left from this particular branch of the program were dispersed to the four ends of the earth, not to make contact with each other anymore.
Have you ever contacted any of them?
I have not.
Well, you can tell me off air.
No, I honestly have not. I've dreamt about them, and I believe that I have talked to a couple of them in spirit. Not so much participants, but my security passed away some years ago, and I believe that he visited me in dreams probably about 4 years ago. Wow. And that was an emotional experience.
From what you were when you were a child to what you can do now, what is it that you tend to focus in on? What is it that you can do?
If I had to select a venue or a description, I would have to say I'm much more a medium than anything else. And that's what I enjoy. That's what I like to do. I like to speak for those that have no voice anymore. And it's easy. It comes natural. Um, I guess I would have to say I communicate with the living the same way because I'm able to minister to what they're really feeling, what they're really thinking, and what you're saying inside. Does that make sense? I mean, am I fogging the issue?
No, I think that is clear. Do you have to be in the room with the person? Do you have to be in contact with them personally? Or do you touch them? And kind of where is it that you get the connection?
It helps if I'm in the room. If it's a living person that I'm connecting with and that I'm communicating or that I'm reading, it helps tremendously if I'm in the same room with you. If it's a disembodied spirit, it helps if I'm in the vicinity. Because think of it this way, Al. Now I'm inspired and excited. So, think of it this way. All of that spiritual energy, when you're living, is compacted inside your body. So enable for me to interact it, I've got to be closer to it. When you're disembodied, like for example, I'm reading a building or trying to read a building because it's very difficult. Then I've got to get in the vicinity, but that energy is no longer limited within the boundaries of the body. So I'm able to find it faster. So like when I walk up to a building and they're like, okay, we believe this building is haunted. Can you tell us? I can connect with the building and what I call ping the building, and that energy will respond. Whereas if I'm just standing out in your yard right now, you don't know I'm out there unless you look out the window and you see me, and that's how we have to interact. And now if I'm in contact with you, physical contact, then shoot, try and stop me. You may feel a slight mental pressure, you know.
I do all the time.
Well, it's not me all the time.
If you're out on the road walking or in a room with somebody and it just starts happening,
mm-hmm.
is it usually, do you think someone's trying to connect with you so that you can tell someone else in the room or somebody around something? Do you get messages?
Yes. It works in a variety of ways because I've tried not to limit myself or pigeonhole myself to just one type of communication. Have you ever you and I, we've talked about this before. Have you ever just been standing in a mall and suddenly you feel like somebody's staring at you and you turn around and there they are?
Yeah.
It starts like that. It's that connection of energy without you even being conscious of it at first. And you get that, ooh, that's weird feeling. Or the energy will physically interact with you. Like I'll get goosebumps. And then you get this sudden awareness. And if you tune into it, you'll hear that, hey, I know you can hear me. I know you can see me. Talk. Tell them this. You're standing right there. I can't talk to them. And then it begins just the flood. It's almost like you're thinking with two minds. But you're aware of who the other one is. Other times it's mental pictures, images. Because if you think about it, a lot of times we don't think in words. Right now, we're taking thoughts and making them into words so that other people can understand it because they can't see our thoughts. So we all think in imagery. For example, truck. Now, what did you just think of?
A monkey.
I know you're not telling the truth because I'm already plugged in. You, Al. But you see a truck in your mind. Or if the more emotionally charged the imagery is, the clearer it is. Like you use an image, well, let me just go taboo. It's after 9 o'clock here. Sex.
Oh.
There you go. See? Now, what did you think? You thought that powerful imagery. And a lot of times spirits find that it's easier to communicate that way. I will just flood your mind with images. You sort it out, but I want them to know about this. So I'm going to give you imagery. I was killed. I was shot. Here's what the weapon looked like. Here's what the bullet looked like coming towards me. Here's me laying on the ground bleeding. Here's what the pain felt like. Here's what I saw after. Here's what my killer looked like. And they'll flood you with imagery, and you've got to sort all of that out.
Something very basic like truck. Your interpretation of a truck might be a Ford, mine might be a Dodge, but it's still kind of a truck. So in the same element, I guess, when someone from a different culture, let's just say, could just be a different area of the States even, has an idea of something that's a little more complicated, and they show you a picture, how is it that you pick up on that and interpret it? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. Could it be culturally different?
Yeah. So
sometimes it is, and that's difficult. You may have to ask them for more clarification. Just like in any discussion or any type of conversation or an interrogation, you may get a little piece of information that you feel is important. Like, okay, you just showed me a gun. Was this your gun? Were you shot by this gun? Did somebody else have this gun? Is it a gun? Are you trying to talk about a shot, or are you trying to talk about a weapon? You have to begin to press the spirit for more information. You will run into spirits that don't speak English, as weird as that may sound. Even in death, apparently, there are language barriers. I don't know. I just know that I've run into it. And you may depend completely on that imagery, but there's a language barrier. So you've got to mentally or spiritually press that spirit for more information. It's kind of like an interrogation sometimes.
So now, do you find it easier being... I consider you to be a little more logical, and in the fact that, the old concept of two sides of the brain, one's logical and thinks in terms of structure, and the other one's emotion and thinks in terms of more artistic. I'm thinking you're probably more in the logic than the artistic side, but I could be really wrong because you love EDM. And that I find that very, very unusual in... For this is what I've come across in really structured, logical people. But then that's what's kind of very conflict for me, in the sense of when I look at you, because you go by military, and you have you're structured in your religion and what days you go, and you have a very organized set life kind of in that way, and that's all good. But how does that affect with this? Because this is a lot more emotion. You know what I'm saying?
I do, but
doesn't there a conflict? Is what I'm saying. Doesn't it sort of sometimes you'll see things and feel things from, let's say, a spirit, and doesn't that kind of play on your logic? Doesn't it sort of contradict it?
You bring up a good point, Al, and nobody's ever brought that up before. And now you've really got me thinking about it. I like to be logical, but I also tend to be very sensitive because I feel the feelings of others, or try to empathize with it. Let's go backwards. Let's go back to some of the training that we received in the military. I really feel that was really trying to get us to think and process information with both lobes. which is what the repetitive trance-like sounds were for. I don't want to get real fancy and call it brainwave entrainment because there's mixed results about that. But just keep that in mind, that was the foundation. I had the skills, the abilities. They trained it, boosted it, and then sent me where I am today. So let's answer your question with this. I can sympathize and I can feel their emotions. I can, utilize that free thinking artistic side and apply the logic to it without getting caught up in the emotion. Because you've seen it. I know you have. You'll go to an investigation and you'll have a medium who's a very talented medium, but they get all wrapped up in the emotional axle of what the spirit is communicating or making them feel. And they get bizarre and freaked out, and eventually they shut down and become useless because they get all wrapped around that.
That's what I find unusual about you. That's more like myself, is someone that's very structured, logical, and has some a thought process going on at the same time, can tap into the emotional side. And so you were saying, like some mediums, they become useless because they get too wrapped up, they get too one side, like into the emotional, and that's it. They lose their ability, let's just say, to accomplish something. So that's what makes it hard for me to work with another medium. I'm not putting anybody out there and saying, oh, I don't like this person or anything like that, or saying they can't do their job. But I find it interferes with what I'm trying to do. It starts to take my attention. My focus becomes on that and not what I'm there for.
Yeah, you begin to watch the show as it unfolds in front of you, and you're missing out.
Yeah. It takes my focus. My attention is no longer where I want it to be. If that makes sense?
Absolutely. You are right. And I've been in those shoes. And let's talk about that for just a minute. Here's something that makes me uncomfortable. When there's nothing going on, I'm not going to create it or fake it. That to me just completely destroys what we're trying to build here. And you'll have other mediums that they're like, oh my God, I'm sensing this spirit and it's saying this, or it just touched my butt. And then they look at you and they're like, right? Yeah. Don't tell me you didn't. And I'm like, you got me. I know I'm not feeling it. Oh, well, I am. And then they, it's just so uncomfortable. Because not all mediums work the same way. We're not all going to pick up the same things. We're not going to always interpret them the same way. In the last year, we filmed a show for NBC, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed doing it, but, just for the celebrity's sake. Plus, they gave me, all the free barbecue chicken I wanted. And that was nice.
Yeah.
But they're rushing you from room to room because they broke us up into two teams. And, I'm used to working with 5 of my team members. We're like family. Yeah. Been doing this a long time. And next thing you got, like you said, you've got all these cameras, all these strange people, the show host, and then you got this guy with the big boom mic up above your head. And I'm like, God, that thing's going to hit me. And you can hear the other team upstairs pounding around. I'm like, oh, you know what? Just screw this.
Yeah.
Screw this.
Yeah. For me, it makes it become not real. All of a sudden, I just start biding the time. I just start being there and not really doing what I would like to be doing. Yeah, you can have a good time. There's lots of chicken and
exactly
and food, and there's some nice people, and it's fun and all this. That's all good, but I don't find that I connect very well.
You're right. I have to agree. Because plus it helps to know that you're doing this to actually help somebody. So that's a motivator.
Right.
when you're doing a show, to me, there's really no motivator. I mean, I don't need the money.
Yeah.
Last episode we filmed, I did it for free just because, I told them I'd do it. But if you're in this to really help people, it motivates you because you see what they're going through and you want to empathize with that. When you're doing TV episodes, you really don't have that.
What do you think about the shows that are on TV that deal with more strictly paranormal, not so much UFO or Bigfoot? Do you sort of find any that you really enjoy?
We were talking a little bit about this off air. I really... Oh, you clever devil Al, you set me up.
No, it's not a setup, because for most people that listen to this know that I don't care for almost any show that I've seen on TV. There's very few that I enjoy. No, it's not a setup. And people kind of know the few shows that I have liked because I would like them and say that. But I do grow tired of them even if I do like them.
I'm going to stand with you on that. I enjoy a lot of the shows when they first start. Because when they first start, they're genuine. They're really eager to show their talent. They're more instruction. They have something to teach you, and that's why I enjoy watching them. You learn things as you go. We all have something that we can share with each other and make this a bigger, better community. But after a while, it's like they're more in it for themselves. It's the celebrity syndrome. Okay, I'm beyond trying to teach you anything. You're going to sit down and you're going to watch me simply because.
Because I've got good hair.
Yeah, and there you go. Oh, my goodness. And I liked him in the beginning.
I love that I can say that, and it doesn't matter who I say it to, they know exactly who I'm talking about.
Yes, you do. You were exactly right. But I remember Zach before he had a TV show.
Yeah.
Look at the beginning when these shows first start out, though. They're so young. They're so eager. That energy to actually do an investigation, do it right, and show others that you can do it. Now, it's you become a diva.
Yeah. It's hair and shirts and the right clothing
and how many cameras are following me? I contracted a minimum of 5.
Yeah. And plus, I find that they're become formulated, because even one of my favorite shows initially was the Dead Files. And you have to admit, I mean, I remember watching the first times I was watching it. I was loved watching it. And I couldn't wait for the next one. And I liked the concept of having the logical cop going through the history and research, and her going through her way, and then they meet up and talk about what matches. And I like that. But the spontaneity went away really after the first year, and it became very formulated. So now every show is exactly the same setup. There's no surprises. There's no differences. I don't know if that makes sense to you. There's no...
It does. The same thing happened with me and Ghost Hunters. Oh my God, I loved the first 3 seasons. They taught me so much. And after a while, you could start seeing as members dropped and members come, and members drop and members come. By season 5, they had a routine, and you already knew what you were going to see.
And I also don't like that they're not a medium sort of using group.
Well, now that's their thing, though. I'm not going to hold that against them. And they have said why. They want to go with the purely scientific, here's the evidence, here's what we can hand you approach.
But I don't agree with that. I mean, by all means, God be with them. They can go. It's their show. Choose how they want to format it and how they want to do investigation. I'm all for that. But I don't agree with that theory, because it's like the same people that walk in and say, to the family, they say they're haunted, and they go to a house, and it's like, what was the problem? Oh, we used a Ouija board once or twice, and now we've got this, and they're like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do that. It brings in spirits. And then they're around with their K2 meters and saying, oh, hey, is there anybody here who want to talk to me? I don't see any difference.
It does, Al, and you've kind of touched a nerve on something we need to talk about. Because that's something that I have not yet been able to reconcile.
Okay.
With myself.
Okay. And what exactly is it that you're having an issue with?
Well, because I am not a big firm believer in Ouija boards. I will not use one. And I do not know if it is simply the stigma that they have, or is it really something that I need to be concerned with? Because I do the same thing. I will not use a Ouija board. Don't like them. No, don't even think about bringing it on an investigation. But I'm sitting here with an Ovilus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And K2s and meters everywhere. So am I...
What's the difference?
Being a hypocrite.
Yeah, because I don't see the difference. Listen, you know the history of Ouija.
I do.
Okay. What's the difference if I have a board and I ask for a spirit to come talk to me and answer questions in a room, or if I do it with a K2 meter, or I do it with a medium, or I do it with whatever apparatus I choose? You see, because I don't think it's about the apparatus. It's not about the Ouija board. It's about what you're doing with it. The board doesn't do it. It's you and who you're connecting with. So the board itself is not possessed. It's not the cell phone that gives me the bad news. It's like when my phone rings and it's someone trying to sell me something.
Right.
I don't throw away my phone. It's not because I had an iPhone and I should have had a BlackBerry. Do you know? It's about who called me or who I called. So I don't think the apparatus is drawing in the evil spirit. There's so much stigma to it's the board that did it. Well, it wasn't the board that did it. If you opened up the board and you said...
When it was...
Yeah, I mean, the board doesn't hold on to an evil spirit. I was like you maybe 5 years ago. The Ouija board is not the problem. It's what we do with it that's the problem. It's who you're looking for. And I just don't believe the hype in the movies, because of course the Ouija movie made it look like some innocent little girl that just opens it up and they're going to come after her because she's young and naive.
That the movie wasn't all that good anyway.
No, it was actually kind of, not. I wasn't even really scared. It didn't really do it for me. But, I just think that it's used as a tool in Hollywood that scares people, and they think it's an evil item that was really just a board game.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be me, Al. It's
because that's crossing the level of superstition. Right.
Touche.
And I don't mean that, and I never slam people. I'm just sort of saying that isn't that kind of coming up to, well, that's kind of like superstition in a way. It's like number 13 and don't step on a crack, you break your mother's back, and there's all these things that come from somewhere. You remember, what I found interesting about Ouija was if you look at the history back when it was. A newer item in the late 1800s, it was a board game. You look at some of the pictures and they've been drawn in the early 20s and stuff of the family. Grandma was sitting around with the kids playing Ouija.
Yeah, but why? I mean, there's a big difference between Ouija and Monopoly.
Well, no.
What's the end game?
Well, no, you see, it was a fun thing. You see, because back then it was...
the spiritual movement.
Yeah, and it was also, you got to remember, there was, they didn't have communications. They didn't have, when your family and son and people went away to war, this was not just like it is now. They weren't texting and they weren't on the phone and you couldn't watch the war on TV. It wasn't broadcast.
Yeah, listening to radio shows.
Yeah, and things were very took a long time for things to happen, especially back then. People would go away for months. It took them a long time to get home. This was a way of communicating with your relatives, your dead. It was sort of, and back then, remember, death wasn't so. In the U.S., death was not considered the same as it is now. I mean, someone would die in the family. You have the 10 kids, and one of your kids died. They all took pictures with the kids. They all posed the dead body. They all posed with, and they kept it around for a long time. That was not an unusual occurrence in the U.S. history. Death was a different concept to people. So
you're right. They would keep the bodies around in the house for a long time on certain occasions.
Right. So this was kind of so to them, death meant something different than it is to us now.
Well, how did it get to this point?
The stigma of they didn't have television shows. They didn't have all the drama. They didn't have like this, how many times have you seen movies, everything from, Exorcist to Dracula to Frankenstein to Godzilla to all this stuff that's, even from people like you and me at our age. And if you think of what we saw as a young generation that influenced us, they never had that. 100 years before that, they wouldn't know what you were talking about if you talked about Godzilla or Frankenstein and all that stuff. It was a very small elite people that would even read books. So it wasn't common mainstream. This was a very novel thing for them, and we've turned it into what it is now, from movies like Ouija and from The Exorcist, where that's what they were playing before our head spins around, right? I mean, really. I mean, what else would you think of it? I mean, if you grew up and that's all you've ever seen this Ouija board as, how else would you think of it? But back then, if you grew up in an era where you didn't have any TV, let's say none of it existed, you never saw any movies, you had a clean apparatus, and a Ouija board, Grandma would bring and play with you. You'd play with Grandma and your brothers and sisters as a game. It would become a little bit more musical to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and I do need to go back to your archives because you did have the curator of Ouija on.
Oh yeah, that was incredible. Actually, I spent probably 2 days with him and the planchette guy, Brandon. I learned so much about the history, and it was incredible how in the 20s when the marketing company took Ouija, because you see, and I didn't realize this, but there's little subtle things that you don't realize until someone explains it. How back then, if you were interested in courting a woman, how you asked permission and how you would never be allowed in a room alone with a woman, and certainly not in the evening. Like, that was just not to do. That was just so you couldn't, it wasn't polite, it wasn't good manners. And so the Ouija board was marketed for people to play together. So you would see pictures from the 20s where the guy gets in a room and he's playing Ouija with a girl that he's interested in, and she's got the Ouija board on her knees, on her lap, and they're playing. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, and she's looking at the board, and he's looking at her. It was a way of connection for couples, for kids. It was just a totally different thing to them back then. It wasn't like it is magical, mystical, evil. They had no concept of it being bad at all. And why would you have all those years back then when they were playing it and using it, very similar to how we do it now, and nothing evil ever happened? The evil started happening in the 70s. So what, just all of a sudden the demons started on Ouija in 1970? I don't know.
Well,
I see my logic side always, but my logic side pulls out of that and starts to go wrong.
you've seen plaid pants, so evil was introduced in the 70s.
That's true. And I had a pair of striped pants. Flares. Striped
Wow.
flares. Okay? So I mean, hey.
The bell bottoms.
The bell bottoms. We all did things we shouldn't have done. But
and we wore them so proudly. But look at how we're looking at that now, plaid pants. And I guess that's how we're looking at, how I look at the Ouija board. Back then it was something so benign, and then it's become something so ridiculous today.
Yeah. But I think
it was just a slow evolution over time as our culture changed.
I just don't have any use to use a Ouija board. I don't see any purpose in it.
Neither do I. Not as much as I've spent on my equipment, no.
I see no purpose. But if you do not have a medium in your midst and you're trying to communicate with someone, a spirit, I wouldn't see any problem with it. Personally. Because I really do not believe that you need to open it a correct way and close it a correct way and all this stuff. Ouija became popular in the 70s because it was something to do, and Hasbro was selling it, and it was becoming big. Now, most of the spirit mediums back then, or the fortune tellers as we called them, didn't like that because people were able to do it without paying them. You see,
good
people
point.
In the 70s, it became that was becoming an age where people were able to go out and buy things and do things on a whim quickly. They would go out and pick up the Ouija board for $5, and they could communicate with the spirits. They could talk to their dead loved ones, and that was taking away business from all of the fortune tellers. That sort of whole era. And that's when it started being more, you should never do that if you don't know what you're doing. You need to have a medium. You need to speak to someone that knows what they're doing. And they started blaming it on, you're not opening and closing things, and you're not, so you're letting evil spirits in. I'm sorry. That to me, I'm convinced that it's just about popularity and money. There you have it.
I am schooled. I mean, it's not like I'm going to run right out and buy one today, but I've gotten so deep into it as I do lectures and I do the tours. Inevitably, end of every tour is when the audience wants to come up and ask you questions. And I've been asked so many times, well, what do you think about the Ouija? I'm like,
yeah,
not good, don't do it. And now what do I say without looking inconsistent?
It's the intent, it's what I'm trying to do. That's how I look at it. And I've sort of fallen on that side now. My logical side's winning over right now.
Not your artistic side.
Yeah, my artistic side usually wins on things like this. But no, and it used to be the leader, but now I've gone the other way. But enough about me. I hope that helped.
It did, and I've heard similar arguments before, but I respect your opinion. So I propose an experiment. We will utilize a Ouija board at some point in the future, and evaluate the results against the impressions and spirit communication that I get.
Okay. I'm up for it.
Because we will know the difference.
Yes. I'm all up for it. Hey.
It's like Ouija boards don't kill people, demons kill people.
Well, exactly.
I kid. I'm just kidding now, but
the thing is with me, I don't believe that we have the answers. That's the other thing. When I hear someone on TV telling you that this is why and this is why it has to be and you have to, and they give you all these rules, I'm just thinking, well, I've been a medium and I'm in my 50s. I've had no conclusive rules given to me. I've had no book given to me about this. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you feel very convinced of things?
No, because I always give myself I'm never 100%, and I'm not arrogant enough to say that I am.
Right.
That's just, to me, that's just fallacy. That's foolishness.
Right. So that's why if people ask me, I don't know what you do, but if people ask me, who should I go to for a reading? I want to see someone, or and they say, who do you think I should go to, or what do you think? I always say to them, if they have all the answers and they're exactly right, they're the ones not to go to.
Wow, that's a good point.
If someone telling you all this and that, and you need to do this, and you've got this and all that, and they give you all this 100% about this is what's going on and how and why and who's doing it, and they start telling you that you got to go start burning sage and all this stuff, and I start to get a little bit suspicious.
Yeah.
Myself.
Or if if they're the only ones that you want them to go, or that they want you to go to.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Like, well, here, how much do you have in your wallet?
Yeah, yeah. We take Visa.
Oh my God! For $3.99 a minute.
Yeah.
Operators are waiting for you now.
Yeah.
No, because how can we put such absolute restrictions on spirits?
Right. Yeah.
You can only go to this. When people ask me, "Do you know a good medium?" Well, what are you looking for? What would you like to know? Because there are different types of mediums. What do you need? Well, I'd really just like to talk to my dead husband. Well, what would you ask him? I mean, I know that sounds like you're extending the question. You're just repeating the same thing over and over to him, but it kind of gives you an idea. You start going through that Rolodex in your mind. Well, maybe this person would be able to help him. Maybe this person. And they're like, well, why are you asking me all these questions? Because I want to get you to the right place.
Yeah.
What is it that you really want to know? Maybe you don't need a medium. Maybe you need a sensitive. Maybe you need an empath. Well, what are you experiencing? Maybe. Well, I've got these things going on in my house, and I just want somebody to come and see if there's something there. Well, then maybe you don't need a medium. Maybe you need a ghost investigation group or a paranormal investigation group. Maybe you just need to sit and talk with somebody.
A psychiatrist.
Well, sometimes, Al, yeah. Maybe you're just misinterpreting events. Let's start there before you start getting out there, looking for mediums. Meanwhile, guess what I'm doing? I'm reading the person.
Yeah, and you're in the phone book under psychiatrists.
Wow. No.
Well, sometimes,
I just put my little thing, the psychiatrist is in.
Yeah.
Here comes Charlie Brown.
Yeah. See, I'm old enough to know that one, too. Lucy's sitting there with her little 5-cent jar out there.
Man, it was cheap back then.
Yeah, things were good back then.
Yeah, it's more like $500 an hour.
Yeah. So speaking of the world, there's so much turmoil now. Does that affect your day-to-day life? Like, do you worry that the world's going to end? Or that there's not, you know what I'm saying? That things are going to happen and things are going to get real nasty. Do you hear or feel vibrations like that? Do you kind of get that sort of?
Not really. It's not really my thing. Occasionally I feel that I'm having a prophetic dream, and I usually write them down, dates, places, and times. But Al, I really, since it's not my forte, I tend to not put a lot of stock into it. Is the world going to end? Yes, absolutely. It's got to. It can't keep the way it's going.
Yeah, but is it really the world? Is it just really us? I mean, are we just not really kind of hurting ourselves in the big picture and not really the world? I mean, wouldn't the world just survive? See, whether the world is like, whether you buy into any sort of climate change or any of the sort of things going on in the world that we're doing, let's just say, would it really matter if we made it so that we all died?
Well, is it an actual physical death or a spiritual one?
Exactly.
Let's go to the next level of the question.
Yeah.
Prophetically, we know that there are two things going on. Well, let's just go scripturally. We know that there's two things going on. There's physical symptoms of a spiritual battle. And what we focus on so much, and what the media is focused on, and it's everybody talks about, is those physical symptoms. Well, there's hurricanes, there's earthquakes, there's wars, and this faction fighting against this faction, and these are all just physical symptoms, but it's what you see. It's just like when you have the measles, you see the red bumps, and so you focus on the red bumps. You don't really know about the virus inside you. But we see all these physical symptoms of something that's going on in a much larger realm of the spiritual. And that's really what I tend to connect to, is the spiritual thing. I try as hard as I can, and oh my God, Al, it's so difficult to not get so caught up in, all this crap on the world.
Right.
And I say this as I see Fox News playing in the background. But
well, what are you watching Fox News for?
No, I'm not watching it. It's just there.
No, I know. I flip around, and doesn't matter what you have on, right? So I don't think it. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Is the world going to end? God has told us it is. And these physical symptoms, eventually this body we live on is going to purge.
When you go into a place and you're picking up certain things, and you kind of help the best you can, and some of them will be like, well, do I need to use holy water and stuff like that? Or they'll see something on the show.
I gotcha.
And one of the groups has said, oh yeah, you got to use holy water. You got to put it over top of this door and that door. And other people, it's sage, some's herbs, they have some really unique ingredients depending on where they're from, and and so how do you associate that if it's someone that is in a religion that you maybe are not familiar with, or how does that correlate? How does that work?
Well, first of all, I try to be very, very open to other people's belief systems, because something that crosses all belief systems, the one string that ties us all together between these belief systems, and I keep saying that word for a reason, is belief. When I'm trying to help a client, unless I am a practicing Jew, but they may be a hardcore Catholic, and they're like, well, should I put holy water around the home? Yes, you should. And here's why. Because that practice of placing that item which is sacred to you strengthens your faith and gives you the energy to, bind this spirit or to keep the spirit out. So when you associate a physical action with something that has a deep faith-based meaning to you, that in itself is what is working. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the direction I go into myself.
If
someone has a belief in a certain idea, then or certain things going to help cleanse their problem, then do it.
Yeah, because it's your faith. Why do people wear crosses? Don't you know you're a Christian? Why do we wear Mogan Davids? Do we not know we're Jews?
I just thought it was fashionable.
Well, not so much more, apparently. But it's because you're associating. That's a physical action. That's something that you see to remind yourself. But why do I need to be reminded? Because there for a few moments when I see that in the mirror, it boosts my faith. So these people who are suffering something spiritual, once they understand that it, is something spiritual, if it is indeed that, then I need to hit it at a spiritual level. So should I burn sage? Yes, if you feel it would work. Absolutely. Well, should I pour salt around my house? Should I bury medallions of St. Michael? Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. If that gives you that sense of security and bolsters your faith, have at it. Absolutely do so. And if you don't mind me expounding on that for a while, let me go to Scripture. Before Jesus healed anybody, what did he ask them? Yeah. Jesus always asked them, do you believe that I can do this? So I ask you that to ask you this. Was it that person's faith in Jesus that healed them, or was it the divinity of Jesus itself? Because if if it was the divinity of Jesus, he would have never had to have asked the question. It was their belief. They're standing here in front of Jesus because they believed he could do it, or they wouldn't even be there. So when a person does this physical action, should I do this, Kevin? Absolutely, because that's going to bolster your faith. It's going to rekindle your faith, and it's going to make you stronger. I think I just fuddled up the question, but
no, it's good. Do you ever feel like you could have been fooled by a familiar spirit or a demon when you were communicating?
I would like to think that I do have the ability to discern. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? Not lately. Because I feel that God has given us all the spirit of discernment. You naturally can tell if something is wrong, given the abilities that I feel that God has given us as mediums. He's also given us certain safeguards. He's also given us certain protections. And if you're wise, you'll know how to use it. But then again, I'm not too arrogant to say that I'm 100%. Could I have been fooled? It's possible, but very unlikely given the power of discernment that God has given me to protect this ability and to use it correctly.
Right.
The theory of deceiving spirits, there are deceiving spirits. We know they are. If you stick around this field long enough and utilize your medium abilities long enough, you're going to run into a deceiving spirit, sure. You'll run into spirits of dead people that are deceptive and lie about who they are. Just like my God, Al, I work in a jail. How many liars do you think I have?
None.
They're all innocent. But yeah, you learn to discern. You learn to discern after a while. No, this guy is full of crap. No, I feel that this guy is being genuine. Wait a minute, what did I just say? I feel this guy is being genuine. You learn to feel that out.
Right.
God's not just going to give you these abilities and not train you in them. He's going to put you just like a child on a bicycle. God put the training wheels on us throughout our childhood. Here's what you are. Here's who you are. Here's what you do. Now we're going to start sending them in. Here come the spirits. Now communicate for them. And we've all taken our lumps, and I'd like to think that I'm not a fool, constantly being deceived by familiar spirits.
On that note, do you think everybody has the ability to communicate?
I do. At some level, yes. Because we're all bound to it. We're just spirits. We're energy. The only difference between a living person and a spirit is a body. That's it. So why could we not connect with something that is so similar to us, that's part of us? We're all bound together by this spiritual energy. Without sounding so ethereal, we are all one. So it's just a matter of connecting with it and communicating with it at varying levels. What did the what did the Buddhist say to the hot dog vendor?
Oh no.
Make me one with everything. So
Oh. There you have it. You've heard it here first.
Oh, but
so how much ghost hunting you're doing now? I mean, your team's still doing a lot?
oh my Lord, it comes and goes in waves. We did an investigation last Saturday, which was very, very active. We're actually going to have to go back and do phase 2 on Tuesday. Friday night, we're going to one that's actually a little scary. It may be a demonic haunt, maybe. I'm reserving my judgment, and I've put it out over my Facebook. Certain individuals that I wanted to help in the background. Tour season is cranking up for me on Saturday, so that's every Saturday night where we do the haunted tours. Oh my God, Al, we went through about 3 or 4 months where we didn't have much to do, and then as soon as I run out of time, they all show up. So yeah, we are humping busy here lately.
That sounded good. That sounds good. The
humping or the busy?
The humping busy, the same thing. The busy humping. Yeah, I've got a number for you for if you've got a demon problem.
Yes, I will take. At this point, I will take any resource. Oh, never mind. I just thought about it.
Oh, come on!
You had me all excited for a second. I was like, "Hey, what? I could use a resource right now because this one's scary."
Samantha Harris.
Samantha Harris. Yes.
Do you know
We've
her?
had her on our show as well.
Yeah. What about her? I talk to her all the time. That's always a good resource.
I should call her if we're going to run into something really nasty.
She's super nice and seems to know what she's doing.
Thanks for bringing her up. I probably will call her.
Yeah, I would definitely.
I've got her phone number in my phone, programmed in my phone, because she was on The Buzz probably, I want to say end of last year with me and Molly.
So where do you see yourself going now from here?
Probably to bed here in about 15 minutes. But
you got your Ambien yet?
Oh, you want me to? Well, it takes about 20 minutes to kick in now, but maybe next show I'll do the whole thing on Ambien, and then you'll have a lot of editing.
Yeah, so you can do an Ambien, start the show, and then you do a shooter every 10 minutes.
Oh my God. And we can video chat.
Oh, that would be fun.
No, I think right now I'm going to just continue on the path that God has put me on.
Scotty,
he's given us. What's that?
Scotty?
No. God had me first. Scotty just give me a show, which still shows questionable judgment. But
he must have had an Ambien.
There you go. He won't remember. You don't even know I'm on the air.
Yeah.
He'll forget all about it.
He'll say, Kevin, who?
There you go. Who's this guy? I don't remember hiring him.
Where'd he come from?
Which reminds me, next time we talk, I got a funny story for you, speaking of not remembering stuff.
Uh-oh.
But no, I'm just going to continue. The Ghost Group is doing well. Madison County Paranormal Research Society is our group. We are building our team. We're growing, adding new members. We'll probably add 3 or 4 by the end of this year, because we're getting more and more cases, and it's getting to be a lot too much for our core group to handle. So we're beginning to expand. God's given us more and more advanced cases, something to stretch us and challenge us. We're still doing the tours, the Huntsville Ghost Walk. We're in our 7th year, and those are fun. It's a combination of history and haunts. So we're kind of a healthy combination of haunted history, ghost hunters, and probably dead files. We do a lot of research in the background, but we're doing good. And where do we see ourselves going? I don't know. I'm just very comfortable, doing the buzz on Monday nights.
Are you guys ghost hunting mainly residential, or are you doing some kind of both? Like
both. We do businesses and residentials.
What do you find the most active in your area? Like, did you find that the businesses that call you tend to be the most active and most that you want to keep following up, or is it more residential things?
I would have to, that's a good question. I would have to say it's more residential. More residential for deceased, more businesses for residual. That probably just due to the amount of traffic that they have through them.
Unless, of course, it's a bad restaurant.
You never know. You never know.
Then there's plenty of deceased.
Lord, or cruise ships.
I'll tell you. Don't even go there. They flip over a dime a dozen nowadays.
Oh, Lord. And I'll tell you this before I got to go. Every time I think I've got my wife talked into taking a cruise, because she won't do it.
No, I wouldn't
And
either.
I'll just about have her broke down. We'll start thinking about a cruise and looking at them. I'll be damned if there ain't something on the news about, A, the motors shut off and they can't move the ship and it's 10 miles offshore. Or there's a bad buffet, the macaroni salad went bad and there's 500 sick people.
Yeah.
Or something has crashed. Oh, my God, Al.
Or an
What's
infection,
going
or
on?
the one that happened last night, It flipped over.
Yes.
Over
it
400
did.
people. They're still. Oh, it's terrible.
And then she looks over at me like, see, that's why I'm never going on one of those. Damn, I got to start all over again for 2 years.
I wouldn't either anyways. They're not that good anymore.
Well, I just want to do one to say I did it. Every ship I've been on has been military. I want one for me, damn it.
Not much difference.
Well,
the food's bad, and
never know.
The food's bad, and you can end up dead. The chances are the same.
Well, true.
I don't know. Well, no, it's nice to get away, do something. Treat yourself. Well, it's certainly been fun.
Oh, I've had a blast with you. Well, I always do. I hope I haven't bored nobody to death.
No, you're very interesting. Well, there you have it. You've said too much.
Because I love too much, Al. I love too much.
Yeah, that's it. And you look really good.
I do. I like to think I do.
Yeah, you look.
I
really
have a
good.
face that only radio could love.
And the radio is really attractive.
Oh, Lord. You flatter me by proxy.
Well, it's been good.
I've enjoyed it, Al. I'd do it again. I'd do it again next week.
Well, there you go. We can have it every month.
Yeah, it'll be Kevin Al night. It'll be date night.
It'll be date night, yeah. It'll be boys' night. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Al, for having me. I've had a blast. I hope I was stimulating and entertaining.
You're always stimulating.
Well, I mean, intellectually, that is.
Oh, well. Let's not get picky.
Okay. Well, I'm the one dropping your IQ points.
I
Ooh,
know.
Lord.
I think it's my age.
Plug in.
I think I'm just getting old. That's all. Have a good night.
Oh, good night.
Okay.
Ambient on board. All right, good night.
Night, night.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of the Ztalk Radio Network.
I'll be back.